handsome always, with dark brown hair, brown eyes, and regular features, a belle in Lanesville. Georgiana was Ben Kelly Muncie's third daughter. Her mother, Cynthia Langsford of Pigeon Cove. She married Warren Poland of Folly Cove in 1852 at the age of 18 and moved to her husband's home where she lived for 60 years. That house is still there. Georgiana attended her fireside and due to Warren's call to the sea, became an independent and capable woman. She was a member of the Lanesville Congregational Church and Ladies' Aid. The Polands had 3 children. Edward followed his father to the sea, while George and his sister, Annie, each married and moved to New York and would always spend their summers in Folly Cove. Mrs. Poland was a real New England character, described as reserved, dignified, brave, and true with a tender heart. Mrs. Poland passed at her residence on Thursday, March 22nd, 1918, in the pretty house with a well-kept lawn at 1238 Washington Street, after a fall that fractured her hip. Of Georgiana's passing in 1918, in Helen's words, "For many of us, the folly can never be the same. The sweet wilderness of the point, the stretch of blue water with the passing ships, the flashing lights of the Isle of Shoals, all of this eternal." This was Georgiana's view of her world and is still ours today. She is buried in Locust Grove Cemetery, formerly Folly Cove Cemetery. On the Poland panel, which is right behind Frank Garrison there, on the Poland panel there's a must-read story of her husband Warren and his brother. They nearly drowned in Folly Cove, and that's a good read on how they were saved and the people who saved them, the medals they got for saving their lives. Abigail Harrington Knowlton, and she is down there. She's the wife of John Edward Woodbury. She came from Revolutionary stock. Her grandfather was a Revolutionary War soldier who had been granted land. She was born there in Noblesboro, Maine, on June 30th, 1823. Abigail came to Lanesville from Boston by stagecoach after arriving there on one of her uncle's vessels at the age of 16. John and Abigail had 7 children. One of them was Eldridge Woodbury, owner and captain of the schooner Charles A. Dyer. Her husband, John E. Woodbury, in 1828, was 12 years old. He was fishing for mackerel on the schooner Mary off Cash's fishing grounds with his father, and watched him fall overboard and drown. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's a tough one. John's adventures landed him aboard the vessel Gloucester, owned and captained by Oliver Lane of Annisquam. Now this was a huge vessel, very large, because it is said that they went to Liverpool and brought back on deck the first locomotive used in this country. John passed away before Abigail in March of 1895. Mrs. Woodbury celebrated her 80th birthday at her home in 1903, seated in a 200-year-old family heirloom, where she was received by a large number of remembrances. She was 89 years of age and the last of a large family when she passed away on December 22nd, 1912. at her home at 1176 Washington Street, which is now 1174. And she's buried in Locust Grove Cemetery. The residence, where they lived, the residence was originally the Knowlton family farm, acquired by her father when he came to Lanesville around 1839. Abigail's viewing and funeral were attended by out-of-town guests and her local relatives at the family residence. More information can be available on John and Abigail Woodbury's frame over in the corner. Lucinda Lane Sargent celebrated her 79th, 85th, 87th, and 91st birthdays, reported the Gloucester Daily Times. On her 91st birthday, the article says, she is the most remarkable woman for her age and is in possession of all her faculties, with the exception of being hard of hearing. She is a great worker and likes to be busy doing something all the time. She was quite a singer in her younger days, and for several years was a member of the Universalist Choir at Annisquam. Lucinda was the daughter of first cousins, I said that, first cousins, John Seville Lane and Elizabeth Lane. She was born in 1814 and married Captain Luther W. Sargent in 1832. They had 5 daughters and 1 son. Captain Sargent Sr. was a fisherman and pled not guilty after he was arrested when he was found to have sold lead pipe to the Gloucester dealers. Evidently, lead pipe was used to drain water during quarrying and had been found missing. Lucinda died at age 98 in 1913 and is buried along with her husband in the Langsford Cemetery. Have you heard of the sea serpent off Lanesville? We have an eyewitness. On July 30th, 1896, the Boston Globe reported that William Henry Sargent, while lobstering, saw a serpent, and that he described it as a hideous creature about 50 feet long, snow or chalky white, with at least 2 humps, about the half size of a dory. He passed William at a tremendous speed and made a queer noise like a whistle as he came from Plum Cove Bar and headed for Halibut Point. It was also reported that 200 Lanesville residents had seen the fabled sea monster. The Boston Globe article is available entirely in the We Are the Sargents book. In separate incidences, Captain Franklin D. Langsford and James Thurston had run-ins with swordfish when their swords came up through the bottom of their dories that they were manning. Thurston, now all you men, listen to this. Thurston was slightly injured when the sword came up between his knees and scratched his chin. Several years later, on August 9th, 1886, Langsford, the owner and commander of the schooner vessel, the schooner Venus, fishing 8 miles north of Halibut Point, was not so lucky. He was pierced by a 300-pound swordfish